Hey guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on with our read-along of Urha. Let's jump right into it. Chapter 62. This venerable one arrives at ancient Linnan. Their training began without delay. Moran liked feather gathering the most. After all, it's not like he actually expected to learn much from these losers that he had already trounced thoroughly in the last life. Having the funds to indulge with was where it's at. Every day before the break of dawn, they would go to the ancestral abyss to loot golden feathers. Next up was meditation in the Zhurong cave to refine cultivation by training their inner spiritual energy against the burning yang energy of the cave. And 4 hours after that was demon suppression practice with the feathered tribe. Another 4 hours of that, and then they would go to a Sora arena to engage in practice matches against one another. And finally, in the evening, before the night fell, Miss 18 would lecture on the Demon Compendium and Art of Exorcism at the stargazing cliffs of the Peach Blossom Springs. Of course, Moran's favorite time of day was the nightly lecture at the stargazing cliffs because it was the only lesson attended by cultivators in all 3 specialized divisions. He knew that Shinmei wasn't great at footwork and worried if he had enough to eat, so he made sure to give Shinmei half of his harvested feathers every day. But outside of that, he hardly even had any chance to interact with Shinmei. Instead, he spent every day with Chuaning, the two gradually becoming inseparable. Aww, Moran and Shasuni hanging out. During the span of time, they could often be seen together, day in and day out, cloudy and sunny, with Chuaning sitting on the railing of a bridge playing a tune on a leaf, and Moran sitting next to him, cheek propped up in one hand. Or sometimes, Chuaning would be feeding fish by the river, and Moran would stand to the side holding an umbrella, watching the koi fish leap, golden scales glimmering against waters of clear jade. When it rained at the Peach Blossom Springs, Moran would hold Chuaning's hand while they walked along a limestone footpath, its stones cracked from age, an oil paper umbrella held evenly above the two of them. If the rainwater began to collect on the ground, Moran would pick up his little Shidi and carry him on his back, and the little guy would hold quietly onto his arms as the drops of rain pitter-pattered all around them. Oh my gosh, Chuaning is probably having the time of his life getting piggyback rides and hand-holding with Moran. And if the close contact got to be a bit too warm and sweat started to bead on his forehead, the wordless Shidi on his back would reach out and wipe his sweat for him with a handkerchief. The handkerchief was a plain white, with the haitang flower sewn on a corner. Moran kept feeling like it looked familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before, but the careless thought fleeted across and was lost, like the drizzle of rain falling into a deep pond. Wait, is this blocked too much? Okay. One day, Chuaning was resting in the courtyard when Moran undid his braid on a whim and tied his hair up into a high ponytail instead. He was halfway through brushing his hair when Ye Wangxi walked in holding his left shoulder, expression gloomy. Moran, ever observant, raised his eyebrows slightly. Did Ye Shang get injured? Ye Wangxi paused, then furrowed his brows. It's nothing, just got grazed in a fight. But that guy was truly such a depraved lecher, how despicable. ... Moran sputtered in disbelief. Did you get groped? Ye Wangxi glared daggers at him and said coldly, What exactly are you thinking about? Ha ha ha, just kidding. Moran laughed awkwardly, but couldn't resist the curiosity. Who was it though? Ye Wangxi replied, Who else could it be but that flirt from Kunlun Tashue Palace? Moran let out an ah at these words, thinking, could it be that guy? Recently, he often came across female disciples at the Peach Blossom Springs, whispering amongst themselves, Da Shi Shang this, Da Shi Shang that. It was one thing for the younger ones, but just yesterday he saw a 40, maybe 50-some-year-old female cultivator in hysterics by the flower bushes, muttering with distant eyes, Not a single man in this world could even hope to hold a candle to Da Shi Shang. If only he would look my way, speak to me, I'd willingly go to hell with no regrets. Moran had lost it right there and burst out laughing at the lovelorn display. He had a sneaking suspicion as to whom this Da Shi Shang might be, but the Peach Blossom Springs was full of cultivators who barely even interacted, so he had never seen this person despite hearing his name mentioned time and again. And he knew enough shame to not go inserting himself into the gossip of female disciples, so he couldn't really be sure. I was having a drink at the Linghu Tavern in the Western Market, Ye Wangxi said. That bastard happened to be there too, with a girl in each arm. It was depraved, but that's their choice and none of my business, so I wouldn't exactly say anything. Moran agreed. Makes sense. But then, a female Gu Yue Ye disciple ran in, looking around with an anxious expression, clearly looking for someone. Moran laughed. Let me guess, she was looking for that Da Shishang? You've heard of this Da Shishang too? Haha, well, I mean, if even an upstanding individual like you has heard tell of his philandering ways, how could a gossipy person like myself not know? Ye Wangxi shot him a wordless glance, then continued. That Da Shishang is truly a piece of work. Turns out, that Gu Yue Ye girl came looking because he had exchanged tokens of affection with her some days ago, saying he'll be her cultivation partner and stay by her side forever. Moran laughed again. Yeah, that's BS. I bet Da Shishang has like 17 copies of that token of affection, one for every girl he's after. Probably spouts the same pledge of undying love word for word, too. Chuaning had been listening quietly, but now he glanced at Moran and said, disgruntled, Of course you would know. But who would have thought that Ye Wangxi would take Moran's side? Mo Shang has the right of it. The truth is exactly so. That girl was a secret admirer of Da Shishang's to start with, so she took him at his word and gave her virginity to him that very night. Oh dear. Moran hurriedly covered Chuaning's ears with an ayo. Chuaning unfazed. What are you doing? Little ones can't listen to this. It's bad for your cultivation. Chuaning. ... Moran made sure that Chuaning's ears were firmly covered, then immediately asked, with sparkles in his eyes. And then? Ye Wangxi was a respectable individual. He had no idea that Moran, the rascal, was listening to his recount of righteous indignation like he would some trashy romance, so he replied with an air of integrity. What do you think? Da Shishang denied it, of course. He didn't even want to give her the time of day and have some words at least. That girl took out the sword tassel he gave her as a token, but didn't expect the two on Da Shishang's arms to each pull out their own, saying that he gives one to every friend, that it wasn't something special for a cultivation partner. Wow, this Da Shishang sounds like trash. Tis, that's shameless all right. Right? Ye Wangxi said. I couldn't just sit and watch, so I went over to have a word with him. His expression shifted slightly, and there was a pause before he continued. The talk went nowhere, so we got into a fight instead. Moran smiled. I see. But he was actually thinking, that's probably not the whole story. If this Da Shishang was indeed the person that he thought he was, then based on his personality, he definitely wouldn't get in a fight with someone over something like this. Ye Wangxi had probably omitted something out of embarrassment. But since Ye Wangxi didn't want to say it, Moran didn't press the issue, changing the topic instead. That Da Shishang might be pretty good in a fight then. I can't imagine just any random person being able to land a hit on Ye Shang. Which was evidently the wrong thing to say, as it only seemed to make Ye Wangxi even madder, anger flickering like a wildfire in those dark eyes. Pretty good? Yeah, right. Ye Wangxi said with indignation. He himself can't get any more mediocre. The woman did all the fighting for him. What a good-for-nothing. Ah? Ahaha! At those words, Moran took a closer look at Ye Wangxi to find that, aside from the sword wound on his shoulder, there were a couple of bloody scratches on his cheek that were clearly from a woman's nails, and almost fell over laughing. Da Shishang sure does live up with his reputation, ha ha ha! Chuaning said nothing. He seemed to have been pondering something ever since Ye Wangxi said, the talk went nowhere, so we got in a fight instead. He waited until Ye Wangxi left to go bandage his wounds in his room before saying, Moran! Moran bopped his head. Call me Shishang! Wait, is it Shishang or Shishang? Oh my gosh, have I been saying it wrong? Wait. Oh my gosh. Wait. Is it Shishong or Shishong?
师兄
Wait.
师兄
Shishong?
师兄
Shishong. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry guys. Shishong. Shishong. I'll try. Okay. Where am I? Okay. He waited until Ye Wangxi left to go bandage his wounds in his room before saying, Moran. Moran bopped his head. Call me Shishong. Chu Wanning continued, This Dao Shishong, is it Mei Han Shui? Moran said with a grin, That's what I think. Chu Wanning felt silent again, deep in thought. Then, as if suddenly coming to a realization, his eyes opened wide. Could it be that Ye Wangxi got... Shush, quiet! Moran raised a finger to his lips in a hushing gesture, then crouched down to Chu Wanning's height, smiling. Aren't you a little too young to be thinking about that stuff? I've long heard that this Mei Huan Shui person is very unreliable, that he's done all sorts of preposterous things, but to think that he dared to even have a go at a disciple of Rufeng's sect? Moran laughed. Ha ha ha, unreliable is one way to put it. But anyway, let's stay out of other people's business. Here, let Shishong finish putting your hair up. I saw a pretty hair clasp while I was out at West Street earlier, and it wasn't too pricey either, so I grabbed it. Let's have you try it on. Ooh, he bought a hair clip for Shasuni. Just like how Moran didn't like Chu Wanning's taste, Chu Wanning was also less than impressed with Moran's taste. Chu Wanning stared silently at that overly vibrant and honestly gaudy hair clasp decorated with golden orchids and butterflies. Are you sure that's for me? Yup, little kids should wear lively colors like gold and red. Chu Wanning, ... He really didn't want it, but thinking about it again, this seems to be the first time that Moran's ever gifted him something, so he closed his mouth and said nothing, face full of gloom as Moran fastened the clasp to his ponytail. The golden orchids and butterflies glimmered garishly against his long inky hair. Chu Wanning lowered his lashes. He suddenly felt that this wasn't bad. This kind of color, this kind of Moran, this kind of himself. If he was in his normal form, none of this would have happened. It was as if the butterflies had come from a dream. The clouds overhead shifted and colored as sun and moon chased one another across the sky. Half a year of training at the Peach Blossom Springs flew by in the blink of an eye. Miss 18 had said that they would be tested at the half-year mark to gauge their progress. This will be your first test since coming here, 18 announced gracefully to the assembly. The content of the test will differ depending on your division, with 3 different disaster scenarios. Those of you in the Defense Division will enter the Domain of Blood River, those in the Healing Division will enter the Domain of Great Sorrows, and those in the Attack Division will enter the Domain of Fiends. Each of the 3 scenarios is an illusory realm that has been reconstructed using memories of the Ghost Realm invasion from hundreds of years ago. You will not be in any danger while inside, and you will be returned here once you have resolved the crisis within, or therein. Up to 2 people can enter the illusory realm at any time. In other words, you can challenge it alone, or invite one other person to go together. As for the order of testing, they will be announced by the envoys anon. The assembly was dismissed, and the tests began. Moran didn't know how things were going over at the Defense and Healing Divisions, but for the Attack Division at least, half a dozen people have already gone through it, and all did pretty well, so it seemed the test probably wasn't too hard. 10 days later, it was Moran's turn. 18 was the one in charge of the Attack Division. She smiled and asked, Will Mo Xianjun be going with a partner? Moran thought about it. If I choose someone to go along with me, would they then be exempt from having to go through the test again? Of course. Then I'll bring my shudi. Moran pointed at Chu Wanning. He's still young. I'll worry if he goes at it alone. The moon hung bright overhead as they followed 18 to a pitch-black cave, its entrance covered with a thin layer of reddish-gold mist. 18 said, Please listen well. The scene within the Domain of Fiends is that of the calamity from 200 years ago, the first breakage of the Ghost Realm barrier. At that time, because the barrier wasn't able to be repaired in time, masses of vengeful ghosts and malicious spirits escaped into the human realm and slaughtered countless living beings. This illusory realm is an emulation based on the memories of a survivor from Linnan back then. Stepping into this cave will bring you to the battle-torn Linnan city of 200 years ago. Slay the Ghost King leading the army, and the illusion will dissipate on its own. Moran glanced at Chuaning, then turned to smile at 18. Big sister, I'm sturdy so it's whatever, but my shidi is only 6, and swords don't have eyes. What if he gets injured? There is no need to worry. The weapons inside the illusion will not actually hurt you, 18 explained. Any injuries you sustain will only be marked with a spiritual signifier. However, if you get marked at a vital area representing a fatal injury, you will have failed the challenge. Relieved, Moran clasped his hands together and grinned. I see. Thank you for the kind considerations. And so, Moran and Chuaning headed into the test without worry. The cave was pitch black. Stepping inside felt like missing a step, like their bodies were abruptly suspended in midair, followed immediately by blurry images flashing before their eyes, countless contorted faces flowing together into a river passing below them. When their feet landed back on solid ground, they found themselves transported to ancient Linnan, on a road at the outskirts. It was noon, the sun blazed from above, and a putrid smell filled the air. The sight of this ancient Linnan city of 200 years ago, plagued nightly by hordes of ghosts, accompanied by the heavy stench of rotting flesh, unfolded slowly before Moran and Chuaning's eyes, like a weathered scroll scorched by the flames of war. Oh, end of chapter. Okay. Mini-theater. Feathered Tribe Instanced Dungeon Options. What would be the ending to an instanced dungeon with Moran and Chuaning? No healing, death. What would be the ending to an instanced dungeon with Moran and Shimei? No opportunity. The author refused. What would be the ending to an instanced dungeon with Moran and Shuemeng? Bicker in front of the boss about who can self-destruct faster. What would be the ending to an instanced dungeon with Shuemeng and Shimei? Normal composition. There is a possibility of winning. What would be the ending to an instanced dungeon with Shuemeng and Shizun? Death. One DPS standing at the sidelines cheering for another DPS. Oh my gosh. What would be the ending to an instanced dungeon with Shizun and Shimei? Boss dies under the hands of a rampant Moran. This instance does not exist. Oh, okay. So, to recap chapter 62, it is time. It's the time for all of the students to go and do their half-year test. And so Moran chooses Shasuni to go in with him. And they arrived at the ancient Linnan city that was destroyed 200 years ago. We also got a little cute scene or moment where Moran had bought Shasuni a cute little gaudy hair clip and he put it in his hair. So I know Chuaning secretly appreciates that. And also we got our first introduction to Mei Han Shui, who is an absolute flirt and is a shameless cultivator. So let's continue on to chapter 63. Okay, chapter 63. This venerable one sees whom? Linnan City back then was deep in the midst of war. Congealing blood covered the ground everywhere the eye could see, and all around were crumbled walls and ruined houses. Suffocated by the heavy miasma of malicious ghosts, the trees and flora had all withered away. Moran hadn't even collected himself yet when he heard some strange sounds and looked up. Not far away, fresh entrails were hanging off the branch of an old pagoda tree, and a dozen crows had set upon it in a feast, blood and flesh dripping non-stop. And underneath the tree was the corpse of a middle-aged man, blood and organs spilling out from his stomach where it had been torn open by claws. No one would ever know if he had died with his eyes open or closed, because his eyeballs had already been pecked away. Moran was no stranger to such scenes. In his past life, he at once crossed the breadth of the human world to put all 72 cities of the Rufeng sect to the sword. Back then, blood flowed like rivers and corpses covered the fields, making for a sight much like this one. But for some reason he couldn't understand, even though he had reveled in the blood spilt in that life, with every fiber of his being roaring willfully, to suddenly see a similar scene of devastation before him now, he felt instead a biting sympathy. Had he been faking tameness for so long that his true nature had actually gotten unwittingly changed? He was just pondering the point when he heard the sound of hooves from up ahead, accompanied by a cloud of dust. Anyone galloping around in such war-torn times was probably bad news. Moran immediately pulled Chuaning behind himself, but there was nowhere to hide on this barren old road. A group of riders quickly emerged from the dust cloud, some dozen in all, but when they got closer to see, it was apparent that their horses were the opposite of sturdy. A few were so starved that their ribs were sticking out. They were dressed in the same style of white attire with patterns in bright red, wore helmets embellished with feathers in light colors, and each donned a circlet of entwined dragons. The clothes were dirty yet neatly worn, and the people were thin but spirited. Even more unusual was the fact that each of them had a bow and a full quiver of arrows on their backs. In times of war, the two most valuable things were food and weapons. These were clearly not ordinary people. Moran was still about to decide if the new arrivals were good or evil, friend or enemy, when one among them, a youth of only 14 or 15, cried out in horror, "Dad! Dad!" The youth stumbled off his horse and fell in the muddied ground below, but immediately crawled up and staggered toward the tree to throw himself on the mangled body of the middle-aged man, crying miserably, "Dad! Dad!" The others wore expressions of pity, but they had all clearly seen too much death already, so much that they had become numb to it. And so the youth held the corpse and cried in agony, but no one else so much as got off their horse to offer any comfort. One of them noticed Moran and Chuaning standing not far away, and was startled for a moment before asking in a thick Linnan accent, "You guys aren't from around here, are you?" Moran answered, "Yeah, we're from the Shu area." "So far?" The asker was shocked. "The way the world is these days, ghosts are everywhere as soon as night falls. How did the two of you survive this far?" "I can fight a little." Moran knew it was best to reveal as little as possible, and since these people don't seem to be malicious, he pulled Chuaning out to change the subject. "This is my little brother. We were passing by and stopped to rest for a while." Some of the riders, upon seeing Chuaning, seemed a bit taken aback. A couple of them turned to whisper amongst themselves. Moran, alarmed, "Something wrong?" "It's nothing," the young man at the head of the group said, "but on to serious matters. You should go into the city if you want to rest. There may not be any monsters around right now, but ghosts will be crawling the streets once night falls. Xiaoman's adoptive father came out looking for food during the day yesterday, but there was a thunderstorm and he couldn't make it back before nightfall. And then..." He sighed heavily and didn't finish the sentence. Xiaoman was the name of that wailing youth, and the one under the tree was his adoptive father. Such occurrences were commonplace in these chaotic times. Someone in a family would go out to look for food, perfectly fine as they leave in the morning, but never to return by night. Even knowing that these were already events of 200 years past, Moran, watching that youth cry miserably as if he were about to weep blood, still felt a tightness in his chest, followed immediately by a sudden unease. Had he grown so soft? He hardly even blinked when killing people in the last life. He quickly grabbed Chuaning and bid the group farewell. The leader of the group said, "When you get to Linnan City, find somewhere to stay for a while. We're planning to relocate everyone to Puto soon, where the abundance of spiritual energy has warded off the ghost invasion, at least for the time being. You should come with us, rather than traveling with just the two of you." "Relocate?" "That's right." The leader's eyes sparkled to life, and even his face seemed to light up at this. "It's all thanks to Chu Gongzi's brilliant plan. Everyone in the city, from the elderly to the tots, will get to keep their lives now. But enough chatter. We still have to patrol around the city before it gets dark. See if we can find any more survivors to bring back. Ai, Xiaoman, come on! We should go." But Xiaoman could only continue to cry, clutching his father's corpse without even turning around. Moran sighed and tugged at Chuaning, saying in a quiet voice, "Let's go to the city first." Chuaning nodded, but then suddenly asked, "Do you think they managed it in the end?" Moran, holding his small hand that felt a bit cold, "Do you want the truth or a lie?" "The truth, of course." The lie would be better for little kids. So Chuaning answered his own question. "They didn't." "You're right," Moran said. "See, you already knew the answer, but you still had to ask, as if that would change the outcome." Chuaning ignored him and continued asking, "Do you know why they didn't make it out?" "It's not like I'm some 200-year-old demon. How would I know?" Chuaning fell silent for a while before saying gloomily, 200 years ago, practically no one in Linnan City survived." Moran ... Chuaning, "Only a few escaped." "Wait, Shidi, you're so young. How do you know so much?" Chuaning shot him a glare. Yu Hung Elder went over this in history lessons more than once. You decide to not pay attention in class, then turn around and ask me how I know things? How despicable. Moran was speechless, thinking, sure, I spaced out in class, but even my own Shizun didn't scold me. What are you scolding me for? But then again, no point arguing with the little kid, so he'll let it slide. The two of them headed toward the city, chatting along the way, and arrived at the city gates before long. The ancient city stood tall on the bank of the Qiantang River, and was already heavily fortified against ghosts and demons, with defensive structures lining the walls and the perimeter. Countless corpses with curse marks piled outside the city. Such remains, if not taken care of, will reanimate at night. There were cultivators outside spreading incense ash on the corpses, while the sun was still high in the sky and the yang energy was strong. And for the ones afflicted with especially strong curses, they performed exorcism using talismans drawn with cinnabar dipped in wine. A pair of guards stood before spiked defensive frames by the city gates, dressed just like the riders they met earlier, with white attire trimmed in red, twin dragon circlets, bows on their arms, and a full quiver of arrows on their backs. Halt! Identify yourselves! Moran repeated his story from earlier. The guards weren't there to refuse anyone entry, but only to register new arrivals, and so they were let through after putting their names down. Before leaving, Moran remembered that the riders earlier had mentioned a Chu Gongzi. Since the relocation of this Chu Gongzi's idea, he must be crucial to breaking the illusion. Sorry to bother, sir, but might I ask about someone? Moran said. The guard looked at him. Aren't you from Shu? You know someone here? Moran smiled. No, but we met some sentry sirs earlier who mentioned a Gongzi by the name of Chu, who's going to take everyone in the city to Puto in 2 days, so I was wondering who this Chu Gongzi was. I know some magic and wanted to see if I could help in some way. The guard looked him up and down, and probably decided that he must have some skill to be able to bring a little kid all the way here without any mishap. So he said, Chu Gongzi is the eldest son of the Lord Governor. The Lord Governor was killed a month ago when the Ghost King descended, and the Gongzi has led us since. The Governor's son? Moran and Chu Wanning exchanged a glance. Then Moran turned to ask, That's strange. How does the Governor's son know magic? What's so strange about that? The guard glared at Moran. Since when was there a rule that you have to be in a big sect to cultivate, that the common people can't do it? Sure, there were independent cultivators, but they never amounted to anything. Moran thought to himself, could it be that this amateur Chu Gongzi and his half-baked idea was what got everyone in Linnan killed? But as they followed the guard's directions toward the governor's residence, Moran immediately realized how wrong he was. This esteemed personage, who just so happened to share a name with his Shizun, was clearly no amateur. Because he saw a Shangqing barrier. Shangqing barrier was a powerful variety of barrier formed with purified energy, capable of warding off all evils. As long as this barrier stood, even thousand-year malicious spirits can't hope to enter, much less the average ghost. But this barrier required the caster to remain within its range in order to ground the spell, and protected a relatively small area. Even a mighty Zhongshi like Chu Wanning could only cover about half of Shisheng Peak with a Shangqing barrier. But right there and now, this Chu Gongzi of 200 years ago had erected a Shangqing barrier covering a radius of 10 li around the governor's residence. Although a far cry from Chu Wanning's capabilities, it was certainly no ordinary achievement. The two of them headed toward the gates of the residence. Moran was going to try his luck and have someone notify the Governor Gongzi that a cultivator was offering help, see if he would be willing to show them the courtesy of a personal meeting. But when they turned the corner, they were met with the unexpected sight of 3 long lines of people queued up in front of the gates. 6 female attendants, dressed like the guards, were bringing out large wooden barrels, and hundreds of emaciated people, the elderly, the infirm, women and children, were waiting their turn to receive porridge. Those who had gotten their porridge went to a haitang tree by the residence. A man dressed in white, with his long inky hair loosely tied back, stood under the tree, passing out protection talismans and patiently repeating instructions. His back was facing Moran, so he couldn't see what he looked like, but he heard the people who had received the talismans muttering, "Many thanks for Chu Gongzi's kindness! Many thanks for Chu Gongzi's kindness!" as they dispersed. So this was the Governor Gongzi? Moran, curious, dragged his little shidi around to get a look at his face. Just one look, and Moran's eyes were boggling out of their sockets, as if struck by lightning. Isn't this Chua Ning? Not just Moran, even Chua Ning himself was dumbfounded. Straining to see from their place at the end of the line, this Governor Chu Gongzi had a lean face with sword brows and phoenix eyes, but a gentle curve to the line of his nose, and he even wore all white, just like himself. Chua Ning, ... Moran, ... After a long while of being frozen stiff, Moran said shakily, Shidia. Don't you feel like this Chu Gongzi looks like a certain somebody? Chua Ning dryly, just like Yu Hung Elder. Moran smacked his leg. Right? What's with that? Who is this? What's his relationship to Shizun? Why are you asking me? How would I know? I thought you paid attention in class. Moran was frantic. This is obviously not the content of any class. Chua Ning was irked. Then they fell silent again, scooting forward slowly with the line, both of them staring unblinkingly at the Gongzi. Upon closer inspection, Chu Gongzi didn't look exactly like Chua Ning. This Gongzi's features were more mild and scholarly. His eyes weren't quite as long and narrow, his pupils were softer, and his gaze was much gentler than Chua Ning's. Moran stared and stared, then suddenly let out an eh? And turned to look down at his little shidi. Let me look at you. What do you mean? Chua Ning ruffled turned his face away, but Moran only grew more persistent at that, reaching out to grab his face and forcefully turned him back around. He stared for a while before finally coming to a realization and muttering, Ai ya. Chua Ning forced himself to remain calm. What is it? Moran narrowed his eyes. No wonder those people outside the city were muttering amongst themselves when they saw you. I just noticed, but you look kind of like Shizun too. ... You don't say, Moran. You don't say. Chua Ning hurriedly wrenched himself out of Moran's grip, the tips of his ears turning red. Nonsense! But how come those guards noticed immediately, but it didn't even occur to me for so long? Chua Ning, ... Maybe because you're kind of dumb, Moran? In the midst of puzzlement, the voice of a young child called out, Papa! Ooh, end of chapter 63. Wow, what a cliffhanger, guys! Okay, so, to recap chapter 63, they entered the illusory realm, and they come upon the war-torn city of Linnan. They see a corpse, and they realize just how bad the ghosts are, and how much havoc they're wreaking in the place. They come upon some sentry soldiers who direct them to the city, where they learn that there is a governor called Chu Gongzi, same last name as Chua Ning. Is it a coincidence? And they say that this Chu Gongzi is able to do magic, and he produced a barrier to protect the rest of the citizens. So Moran's like, I want to take a look at this Chu Gongzi. He can't be as good as my Shizun, right? Lo and behold, when he sees the face of this Chu Gongzi, he realizes that this guy almost looks exactly like Chua Ning, only like a nicer, more like gentler face, but like pretty much he's like Chua Ning's twin. Even Chua Ning himself is confused. Sha Suni's like, who is this person? I don't know this person. We never learned this in class. I never taught this in class. Who is this? From 200 years ago. And then also Moran finally realized that Sha Suni looks almost identical to Chua Ning. He's like, how did I not realize that before? Huh. Chua Ning's like, wow, it took you a while. Anyway, that was much of a cliffhanger. Someone called out Papa to the governor, so this governor Chu Gongzi is a father. And he shares the same surname as Chua Ning. Are they mayhaps related in some way? Like, is he Chua Ning's ancestor? If that's the case, Chua Ning has no knowledge of this person, though. Well, we're gonna have to leave it here, and we'll hopefully find out more in the next read-along. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!